Laurel, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. It's great to be here.
What's the business environment and the general mood in Santa Monica right now?
Well, I think there's really a combination of things going on, Mike. I think people are frustrated. I think there is a combination of people that are upset, confused, frustrated, and surrendered. You know, you have a mix of everything going on. And with the different changes in the orders, certainly those moods change from hopefulness to fear and back.
It's hard enough being in business in this day and age, but the last thing you want is something like a COVID-19 crisis or civil unrest. Safety-wise now in Santa Monica, things have sort of become a little more palatable.
Yeah, it's quiet here right now. It was certainly that day was a really horrible day for myself, for my businesses, for a whole community as we watched in horror of what was going on in our city. But there's a balance. That's what I love about our city. There's sort of this darkness and light that happens. The very next day, we called with my mayor and my mayor pro tem. We called people into Santa Monica to help do the cleanup, and 1,000 people showed up. And we spent the day, and by the end of the day, we had cleaned up the whole city and really gave our businesses, I think, a little bit of hope. So we don't know, there's so much unknown, and that's really part of, I think, the challenge for all of us. Between COVID and between the frustrations, there is a lot of unknown, but all we have to do is really function within that unknown as best as we can.
With restrictions now ramping up again in your area and in California, and the stop-start sort of economy, very frustrating for your members. How are they coping?
Well, again, you're sort of ramping up, you're gearing up. I'm the Economic Recovery Task Force for the City of Santa Monica, working with our businesses. And so we're in touch with our community leaders way more now than we ever have been, and really working together. And you start moving forward, you create the kind of tools and resources for our members, and you communicate with them, and they start gearing up, and they do what they need to do to be good actors in this environment, and they start getting a little bit of hope, and then the brakes are put on. And I think in particular our restaurateurs, I spent time with many of them that day that the orders were put back, and it was pretty sad. I have to admit, it was really frustrating. And they said, gosh, I was getting excited right before July 4th, getting excited, maybe things are going to be okay. And so it was very, very sad day for a lot of my businesses.
What are the businesses that have been most affected by all that's happening, COVID and the unrest and stuff?
Well, that's one of the things that's a challenge in our community, is the fact that we are a very big hospitality town. Obviously, it's a fabulous place. People come from all over the world. We have incredible hotels. We have over 400 restaurants. We don't have manufacturing, so we're a different kind of town. And so I think any of the towns that are on the coast or really tourism towns, where your hard hit is hospitality. Our restaurants and hotels have been just brutalized through this experience.
You rely a lot on the visitor market, a lot of international visitors normally. This must have a severe impact also.
Well, I was just stepped down from being the chair of the Westside Council of Chambers, and we have 12 chambers. We get together every single week, and there's obviously a lot of similarities and resource sharing and support. And, so all we can do is really try to move forward and bring what we can, whether it's through funding, whether it's through resources, whether it's sometimes playing a little bit of a therapist these days, Mike, I have to say, is really trying to support any of our businesses to kind of walk through this. It's challenging.
Tell us what proactive things the Chamber is doing at the moment to support your members.
We've been doing a lot. What we're finding with our members, because they are at home and they're not having the ability to come and convene, we've had to really step it up. There's a word in chamber life these days we all talk is the word pivot. And it's consistently every day a chance to pivot and understand what the needs are and how we need to move forward and how we communicate that to our members. So, there's many different areas we're working on all at the same time. So we're communicating 3 times a week. We're talking about helping our members with grants and loans, and we're lobbying on a regional and national and local level on legislation that's impactful in a positive and negative way, on getting more funding from national and regional partners. That's a big part of it. We're lobbying an awful lot these days, and we're working with our city through the economic recovery to have the ability for our businesses to find ways to pivot, to find ways to be creative. Our city has been really great on relaxing our permit issues, our permit codes, and we're doing, we have one restaurateur that has dining in, on his sidewalk and in the alley. We have something called parklets that our Main Street has now turned into a very walkable area with what we call parklets, where they're taking over the meters and creating areas for dining. So our city now more than ever, you're always looking for the lemonade and the lemons around this. And so our city recognizes they absolutely must help our businesses get back on their feet.
That's great news, because local, state, federal governments can sometimes be a little lax, not appreciating that, how hard it is in business to do business. And so it's nice that the city is doing that. What about state-wise, though, in state and federal? Do you think they are doing enough? I know this is a bit of a minefield for you, but I just thought we'd find out, because you deal with state, federal, local all the time. And do you think they appreciate enough on what's happening?
Well, the short answer is no. And I'll I don't want to get too political here, but I'll just say a couple of things. One of the challenges is the decisions that are coming down from our governor's office. They come so quickly, and that's part of our complaint for our businesses, that they don't know anything, and then suddenly something is immediately sent out. It could be 48 hours that they have to react to it, and there's often the educational piece of that isn't keeping up with the decision, the directives. And so that's confusing for our businesses. And also they don't recognize what our businesses have to do to step back up. The perfect example is what I mentioned earlier, is our restaurants were excited. It was July 4th. They were hoping to recoup a little bit of money. They hired, they bought products and supplies, and then the next day they were closed. So there's a real challenge, and I don't know what the answer is to that, and I don't know if our governor knows the answer to that, but I'm hoping that there can be some lessons learned here on how we work with our businesses on a little bit better, with more time and more support. And so that's one of the things that we're working on and concerned about. The other thing is that I think that nationally there needs to be recognized that the funding cycles need to be expanded and lengthened. If we want to get business back on their feet, there really has to be an ability to step up and give them the resources and tools that they're going to need to do that.
Very interesting, the COVID-19 crisis. I don't think any government is immune to criticism around the world. 1 minute it's the health, and the next minute it's the economic downturn. And you're right, it goes from left to right, topsy-turvy all the time. Somebody once said, we don't want the cure to be worse than the actual disease. How do you feel about that?
Right. Well, I think that's a big discussion. And some way smarter brains than I are still having difficulty with that. Our county mental health, Barbara Freer, I know that she's quite challenged with that, because you balance loss of life with loss of livelihood. And where is that fine line in terms of how difficult it will be, versus how many people will get sick? And I think that they've been struggling with that. I do believe, though, again, on a federal level, I think, and, again, this is my personal opinion, and other people share this, that we didn't react quickly enough. And that if we had an opportunity for our federal government to be more nimble and quicker, we might have seen something different, because people tend to want to, for a lot of different reasons, be in denial. It's okay. It's going to get better. And unfortunately, things like wearing masks have become a political issue. And there's so many people talking, what we call armchair quarterbacks about whether it's conspiracies. And I think the reality is we have a problem and it's getting worse. And our nurses and doctors are getting overwhelmed once again. And that is the reality. And I think that we have to really recognize that it's a very sobering thought that people have to really wake up to the fact that it's here, it's not going away, it's going to be a while. Everyone's hoping for a vaccine sooner than later, but the fact is we have to react now, no matter what that looks like, whether it's doing something in that arena or really helping our businesses to become stronger, more resilient. And that comes in many different ways. It's helping them physically with the things that they need and the help, the support from the city and what we provide. We're doing an enormous amount of webinars, educational series, convening of state and local leaders, trying to really help them as much as we can with kind of the tools that they're going to need moving forward. But the reality is there's just too much unknown, and there's a long road ahead of us, and we're going to have to be able to pivot in a way that really secures a future for the people that are going to make it. And I don't know what that looks like. I know we have many businesses that aren't going to be covered, not just in Santa Monica, but in our country and the world.
What about membership? Has the numbers been affected a whole lot by just about everything that's happening right now?
Well, it's a funny thing. Are things down? Yes. Certainly many chambers are event driven, and we happen to hold a lot of events ourselves. So that is part of the challenge, is going from, live events to digital events, and what does that look like, and how does that translate, and how are we providing value in that way? But what's interesting about it, Mike, is our members have been so appreciative. And I've heard that from other chambers. If you can imagine the enormous amount of phone calls that we get of people asking for help. We started after the looting, the Santa Monica Chamber started the Santa Monica Business Relief Fund, where we've been raising money to help those businesses that are affected by the looting. They've been incredibly thankful. Right after the looting, we worked with our police and fire to help our businesses take the boards down. So there are all these activations and people joining together to see how they can help. And a lot of people want to help. They don't want to just sit at home doing nothing. They want to help. And so interestingly enough, it's better than we expected. We projected much worse, because we just thought, forget it, but people really want to try to find ways to stay active and stay on top of their game for the time when they can really get back into it, because they don't want to sit at home and not do anything. They don't want to do that. It's not good for them. So we're working with many partners in the community with their skill sets. We're doing PR and marketing next week in COVID. We're working with Snapchat on digital marketing. We're doing many different types. We're doing something with Nam Yoga on anxiety and fear. So we're giving them everything to really help bolster against this so they can prepare, they can keep moving forward.
You just mentioned anxiety and fear, and probably the last thing you want to do is to hit a couple of extra margaritas just to wash down the misery. They actually thought in some parts of the world that, especially in the early days, that there would be this great rush on alcohol, but it actually went the other way. So I think people are, they're being fairly level-headed at the moment. They're taking it one day at a time, but there's only so much you can take. How do you see? This is your crystal ball moment. You're now the Wizard of Santa Monica, looking, say, 12 months, 18 months. If things continue to be stop, start, how do you see the economy for Santa Monica and in California?
People are in the same boat, whether they're in Santa Monica or in other areas, in many different ways, depending on their industries, of course. You're in Vernon, a manufacturing town. It might look different than a beach town. But to be honest, people are projecting and projecting and projecting And we all know forecasts can be spaghetti on the wall sometimes. What I do know is everyone is cutting their budgets. We have a city that also was driven by mostly hospitality in many different ways. So they've had to do a lot of layoffs. They've cut their budget by 25%. So I think our businesses need to just do that today, and certainly project and work on your sales and marketing plans. And our city has a new campaign called, not so new now, around for about 2 months, Santa Monica Cares, which is the initial first part of that program, is to help our businesses with all the things that they need, the signage, the education, the sensitivity. And then it goes into a program called Santa Monica Shines, which is, we are a great town. We're ready to go. We're showing you that we're safe and ready to go. So I think I want to rely less on projections and more on what are we doing today to stay strong and keep moving and be creative and clever and innovative, because that's what we really have. Those are the decisions we get to make today. To project, I've seen the projections change consistently. I'm sure other cities have as well. I'm with our general managers from the hotels on a weekly basis. And so are they projecting into openings in August and September? Yes, they are. Are they projecting to get back to 100% in later in 2021? Yes, they are. They're hoping 8 months to a year from now that they'll start seeing some normality. But that's based on, I don't think COVID-19 is listening to our projections. I don't believe so. I haven't seen the reality of that yet. I don't think it's listening to what we think it should be doing. So I think in the meantime, people have to really batten down the hatches. They have to find ways to cut expenses, and they have to be smart and innovative and pivot and create the kind of businesses that are going to thrive. I mean, a perfect example, our restaurants, were not, a lot of them weren't takeout and delivery. Well, a lot of them are learning how to become takeout and delivery. Some of our retail is really continuing to enter into digital marketing and sales. So I think we have to really see the reality, whether it's our schools, whether it's retail or hospitality. There's things that will not be the same, even 6 months to a year from now. And we don't know when will you be able to have an event for 500 again? Who knows? We have an event for 3,000. Will we ever do that event again? Probably not, but what are we doing in its place?
If somebody wants to find out more, though, about Santa Monica Chamber of Commerce and what you can do for them, how do they do that, Laurel?
Well, I'm going to say two things. One, for us, we have smchamber.com, and we do have a coronavirus page on there that is really good for people to check out, because it goes into all of our other resources in the community, including our smgov.net coronavirus economic recovery portals. And there's enormous amount of information that we're sharing through our website, not only about us and the chamber and the benefits, but certainly about our community and how we're convening state and local leaders to help people, to be experts in the ways that they can to help people rise and move forward.
Laurel Rosen from Santa Monica Chamber of Commerce, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to see you. Bye-bye. Take care.